Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this afternoon, or whenever the video reaches you, maybe in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, the title is Golding Explodes. Was Andrew Holness's JLP victory legit? Was it a legitimate win won by the Jamaica Labour Party during the election? That is what Golding is questioning, and the People's National Party. Mark Golding is raising serious questions about the legitimacy of Andrew Holness's last election victory. Allegations of vote buying, voter suppression, and irregularities have surfaced, sparking a heated debate about whether Jamaica's democracy is truly being protected. In this video, we break down Golding's explosive claims, what it means for the JLP, and how it could shape Jamaica's political future. Now, do you think Andrew Holness's win was legitimate? Or is Golding right to demand answers? Let's discuss. Very important, and make sure that you like, you share, and you subscribe. Very important that you do these things. Now, Golding is a rather interesting character, isn't he? Right? Because before the election, I think when the election was being counted, that he decided that he would, having the GLP having 132 seats, that he was going to concede. Right? Golding actually spoke before the Prime Minister came and said that, his celebratory speech and, claimed, of course, that he had won. Okay, and gave his victory speech. Golding had already conceded. Now, that was an interesting concession, as I thought that it was a very close election when you look at it, because the fact is, during those preliminary counts, Golding had won 29 and his PNP party 29 of the parliamentary seats. And Andrew Holness had won how many? 34 at that time. Okay, at the time of the preliminary counts. So you would have thought that Golding would have given at least a day, because since they were still counting, to suggest that I'm going to concede, which would have been reasonable, the reasonable thing to do. But before Andrew Holness could even make his speech, Mark Jefferson Golding was right off the bat, suggesting that while he was disappointed, but he respects democracy. Now, where is his respect for democracy now in all of this imbroglio, in all of this controversy surrounding the fact that he's suggesting that Andrew Holness might not have won legitimately? Now, this is a newspaper, the Jamaica Observer, carried an article yesterday, September 11. Golding calls for independent inquiry into general election process. Now, People's National Party, Mark Golding on Thursday called for an independent inquiry into the operations of the Electoral Office of Jamaica following what he said were reports of irregularities during last week's general election, which the opposition PNP lost to the ruling Jamaica Labour Party. Golding expressed concerns that the general voting process at polling stations contributed to voter frustration and suppression. Now, isn't this something that normally happens? I don't think there's anything new that Golding is reporting. And a lot of times when they have the shoes on the other side or on their feet or the other foot, right, they actually do the same thing and are also accused of the same allegations that we're hearing right now. The process that results in hours-long waits at many polling stations by voters who turn out to vote, frustrating electors and causing many to leave without voting. This factor is exacerbated by the law, which only gives 3 hours as a window to employees to be away from their workplace during working hours for voting, which is clearly inadequate in Jamaica's modern realities when you consider the time for transportation to get to a polling station from the workplace, depending on where the person works and where they vote, and the length of delays in the lines at some polling stations. Now, this is not the first election that these things were supposed to have been ironed out. So Golding cannot iron it out. And if that was the case, then we need to change the landscape for the next election. But things can't be undone now, because the election has already taken place, and these laws were the laws that were governing at the time. how the election is held and how voters cast their franchise, their ballots. The opposition leader pointed to the usual practice of finger inking, which he said is now being used by some agents to prevent voters from exercising their rights on election day. And I'm sure these things have always been used. We also need rather to look at the use of finger inking that was originally implemented to prevent multiple voting, but it currently facilitates voter suppression as persons are being induced financially to dip their finger in ink prior to the vote and then being paid not to. We have several reports of this being done, alleging that there have been numerous reports of widespread suppression of PNP votes across marginal constituencies. Golding said, reports of very large sums of money being paid. This strategy was enhanced by the timing of elections and related giveaways in the back-to-school week, when parents in low-income families in particular are most vulnerable and could be financially induced to prioritize loyalty to their families and their children over party loyalties. Well, they should not have any loyalties to anybody, but to their principle and to their conscience. They should not be party loyal, nor should they be money loyal, financial. They should not be exercising financial loyalty, except for the fact that it is done in a legitimate and, decent and ethical manner. We are also concerned about the unprecedented, Golding continues to say, scale of distribution of benefits, black tanks, fertilizer, building materials, cash, by both the state and the Jamaica Labour Party, and in some cases it is very difficult to distinguish one from the other, he added. Now, is this not the practice, since the devil was a boy? I don't think Golding is here or has itemized something that is incredibly new, that is unique to this election, or that was unique to this election. This has been the practice practiced by both parties over the years. And if you read Peter Estridge's article this morning in Jamaica Greener, I shall not bore you with many readings from articles, but he did mention that he was a part of the CAF. CAF is the Citizens for Free and Fair Elections, and in which he says that he has, observed elections, and where he saw on both sides all the allegations here that Mark Golding is launching at the JLP, that both political parties, PNP and JLP, have participated in these sort of illegal activities, illegal and unethical activities. In fact, Peter Estridge went on further to say, and he's a journalist and somebody who is a deacon in the church, if my memory serves me right? Isn't Peter Estridge a deacon in the Catholic Church? He's suggesting that both political parties, they practice these evil forms of electioneering and politicking. He used the word evil, and that's a loaded and heavy word to use in describing the political actors in Jamaica. Okay, so the allegations that Golding here is leveling at the Jamaica Labour Party, I am not, of course, endorsing if these allegations are true, I do not endorse what the Jamaica Labour Party would have done, but I'm suggesting here that they do the same thing. This is a part of the political culture of Jamaica. And I'm happy if it could change, but it can't change now just because Golding lost. Right? Just because he lost the election does not mean that it's going to change overnight. They have to come together along with the legal fraternity in Jamaica to effectuate laws, to craft laws, to ensure that next time, in the next election, these things don't happen. While we don't have sufficient evidence to mount a legal challenge against the outcome of the elections, we are nonetheless deeply concerned at the extensive and, I would say, vulgar use of state resources to impact the outcome of the election over the campaign period, he said, adding specifically the massive political advertising paid for by ministries, departments, and agencies of government during and up to election day at the cost of taxpayers to benefit the incumbent JLP, Jamaica Labour Party, administration is problematic. We are going to have to, as a nation, look at the way in which public resources are used in support of political achievements in the election period. And that is true. But if the PNP had won and had come into power as the next government, would they seek to end these maladies in our political culture? Now, there is a person who responded to this Observer article, the Jamaica Observer article, and she says here by the name of De La Vega, and she says here, Mark Golding is now morally inclined to speak sacred words, isn't it? He's now calling for an independent inquiry. He may have baptized since the September 3, 2025 general election. He may have been baptized, he says. But as far as I can remember, this is the real Mark Golding. We have to make sure, say, every comrade who voted, these are Mark Golding's words. So this is what she's saying that he said. These are the words of Mark Golding, okay, on the platform at Donald Quarry High School. I think he said it was in 2011. We have to make sure, say, every comrade who voted for the People's National Party in 2011 and delivered the victory, if they're still alive, them have to go vote for Comrade Patrick Peterkin when the election call. And even some who not alive, you know, if them can deal with it, no problem, Golding said on the platform at Donald Quarry High School. So Golding is actually in agreement, or was in agreement with, the bloated voter list. Okay, he was at the time, and he didn't care whether or not it was a dead person was voting for Peterkin. All right, the fact is that they must come out to vote. That is what he's saying. Well, this is what she quotes him. So I am not saying that he said it, but she's quoting, so I would think that he would have said it. I'm just quoting from what she said. She says again, don't be fooled by this call. The PNP have gotten the shock of their lives because they were beaten at their own game. I could say much more, but the moderator may not allow it to be posted. Right? And we are hearing Mark Chu is saying Trump did the same thing in 2020. And I thought about that, of titling Donald Trump and Mark Golding. Are they of the same metal? Now, Trump did the same thing in 2020, and he and his supporters were called election deniers, threat to democracy, and dictator. Marky British is well within his right to call for an investigation. Democracy requires the concerns of stakeholders to ventilate, or the democracy requires that concerns of the stakeholders be ventilated. Yeah, he's writing well here, and acted upon in the pursuance of confidence and satisfaction in the process. I support the call for an independent inquiry, and PNP deserves that much latitude. And he's right. Okay, the law did it, but it's not that he's going to pretend as if that he is ethical or he's more, moral, and to display his moral rectitude here. All right, when we know that they all behave the same. All right, they behave the same. It's the fact is that he's lost, and they're willing now to, to do anything so that they can get in power. But that's not going to happen, and they're not going to allow us and the political process to be interrupted by because they're just about themselves. They're not about the country. Okay, so we have to understand. We must look out for what these people are doing. Is Mark Golding doing this out of sheer selfishness, because he wants to win? Already, too, there are reports, rumors, allegations that his leadership is already being questioned and being challenged as we speak. But we notice that they're coming out, even the Gleaner this morning, suggesting that Mark Golding will be around. Is this now political distraction? Because that's what they like to do. When they have their bickerings and their combats, internal combats, they like to distract us. And we are going to be distracted about who won, was election legitimate, and people are going to be talking about it for weeks, right? While we're not looking at what is happening internally with the politics in Jamaica, and the fact that we need to reassess, we need to re-examine if we really have a robust democracy as we like to describe ourselves as being. We have to understand that we have to do that introspection, whether or not we have a true democracy in Jamaica land we love. But certainly nothing is going to come out of this. the fact is that this is just a distraction. I would have loved if, both political parties would end their political suppression and voter buying and all of the irregularities that we hear about every election cycle and during every election process. But it is not going to happen because when the shoe is on the other foot, we know that they do the same thing because at the end of the day, both political parties are hungry for victory as they are closer to state capital, to state resources that they can use to enrich themselves and also the economic donors who have contributed to their election campaign. So make no bones about it. Don't think this election was won by you. It might have been won by the party that you follow and that you are an avid supporter of. It does not mean that you and your children have won. We have to look at their policies. We've got to look at their ideologies. And as far as we're concerned, for a long, long time, there has not been a distinct difference between the Jamaican Labour Party and the PNP with regard to ideology. They have the same neoliberal, neocolonial ideology. That is what they have, and you will see no significant change in terms of where the country is going. But that is what I have to say in this breaking news. What do you think? Do you think that Mark Golding should continue to press charges in terms of investigating, inquiring about the illegitimacy or some of the election irregularities? Do you think that he should continue, or do you think he should just stop doing it, terminate what he's doing, and allow Andrew Holness, because Andrew Holness will be invested. He will be his investment ceremony will be next Tuesday on the stand. So yeah, why the confusion now, Marky G? Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the video so the videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. See you in another one. Ciao.